Hey Kristin, I figured since I was bored tonight in Ziggy's Out Gaming that I would show you a couple of quick things about bead stringing on beading wire because it's a lot easier to show somebody. It's very difficult to explain it. It's really simple if you just see it. Especially explaining the things with the little crimp beads because they're so tiny. Yeah. I love beading wire. It's super, it's a lot easier than using a needle because you can just pick up the beads with the ends. You don't have to worry about stabbing yourself. And you can go super quickly. I'm losing my train of thought. But anyway, what I like to do is actually finish and end first. They make these things, they look like a little spring that you can put on the end so you can string your strand up and not have to worry about your beads falling off, and that way you don't have to finish the end first. I don't like those because if you knock it off somehow, if you pull it off, you can lose your whole strand and you can lose your design, and it will make you cry. So I just don't use those. I go ahead and I finish the end first and then I start working. And I don't always even put the clasp on. I usually just make the loop and finish it with the crimp bead and then start working because I don't always know what clasp I want to put on until I finish the design and I see what looks nice with it. And that's what I'm going to show you how to do if I find my crimping pliers. Now, you don't necessarily have to have crimping pliers. These little weird guys, you can do this with a regular pair of like flat nose pliers. I just have these because I use them a lot. What you want to do, these crimp beads are small as fuck. I don't know if I'm going to be able to show you very easily. They're teeny tiny. They come in a pack. You can usually get them in like a little baggie of 100. Anyway, what you want to do, you slide the bead down in, then you make a loop. Watch what I'm doing here. You make a loop and then you go back down into it. So you feed it back down in there. Get it up against my shirt and then you can see it. Then you take that crimp bead and you slide it back up. Now don't slide it so far that your loop is too teeny tiny. You want to be able to fit your findings in there, whatever, your jump ring, or you can put your clasp directly on there. It just depends on what it is. Get your wire. Your wires kind of even there together. And you take your pliers and you just smash the shit out of this thing. With crimp pliers, you start with the back hole, if I can see it. Yeah. I've got kind of low lighting, so my camera will work. You start with the back hole, then you turn this thing sideways, and you smash it again with the side, or with the front. And then you've got this thing smashed to fuck. I don't know if you can see that. Is that focusing? Focus, you bitch. So another thing I use, which is not totally necessary, is I use crimp bead covers. And they look really nice. It's not 100% necessary, but if you want your piece to look really finished, this is something I do a lot. They kind of are like an empty bead. Rah! One nice little trick with these is to, they're going to show. Come on, don't be a bastard. There we go. Kind of see that? It's like a C shape. And if you pick it up with your pliers, it's a lot easier to use it. Got it angled in there right. You can take this and fit it over that crimp bead and then close it over the crimp bead. And then it just looks like you have a bead on the end of your clasp. Ta-da! The next really great tip that will really make your necklace sturdy, or your bracelet, whatever you're making, is instead of cutting this extra tail off that you have here, thread this along with your long strand through the first couple of beads that you're going to use. Now, if you have beads that have a really skinny hole, you won't be able to do it, like if they're little tiny seed beads. But with most big beads, like these big ass fire polish beads, you'll be able to go through a couple of them. Like, at least I'd say like 3. And then you can hold it tight. Cut that fucker off and keep working. I did not mean to shoot that across the room. That's not good. Don't do that. And then you can keep stringing your strand. One of the things that I found the hardest when I first started doing this was when you get to the end of your strand is to do the same thing on the opposite end, and to keep it secure up against your end and not wind up with a big space. And that just really involves pulling your tail down and keeping your tension really tight. And that just takes practice. And honestly, I have had to restring more than a few necklaces because I couldn't get the end to not have a gap because I hadn't pulled it down tight enough. And the only tip for that is really just keep an eye on where your beads are and keep that tail pulled close. And make sure before you tighten that crimp bead down that you have everything pulled together. Don't pull everything so tight though that that there's not a good flow in your necklace, because if you do that, you can actually crack a bead. Like if you get too much tension in a necklace or whatever you're making, beads will actually break because they're glass and they are pretty fragile. And I've done that too, and that's heartbreaking. But anyway, yeah, and other than that, you can just put your jump ring on here, you put your clasp on here, whatever you want, a toggle, a lobster claw, whatever you like. There's one other thing. I don't find it entirely necessary. I couldn't even find a necklace of mine that has one on here. But there are these things that you can thread this part through, this loop, that is called a wire protector. If you have something really valuable that you've worked on, you might want to put a wire protector on the end, and it is just a U-shaped piece of metal, and you loop that through, and before you put it through the damn it, brain fart, before you put it through the crimp bead. And the only thing I could find it on that I've made is actually an earring. This U-shaped thing here is a wire protector. And I haven't even used it on any necklaces. And I only used it here as like a design element to actually hang the earring, which is kind of neat. But yeah, they're really not that necessary unless you feel like your necklace is really heavy and you could break this wire. I've never ever had that happen. But if you want to use those, you can. I just like to save money and not buy extra crap, because God knows this is really an expensive hobby. So yeah, I just don't buy extra elements unless you really think you need them, because next thing you know, you've spent $200 on shit you don't need. And feel free to ask me before you buy anything, like, do I have to have this? Because a lot of times the answer is no. Like these pliers, you can close a crimp bead without these pliers. You can just use regular flat nose pliers. You don't have to buy these from the craft store. You can buy these at the hardware store. This set is a cheap ass set from Amazon, probably made in China. $10 for like 5 different pieces. So a lot of things you really just don't have to spend a lot of money on. These crimp beads in this tube here, I don't know, there's probably like 500 in here. I've been using these for years. It came in a pack of like 5 sizes. I have only used this one size. I will never use any of the other sizes. So try hard not to buy a bunch of shit that you don't know what it is and you wind up just never using it, because it will just sit and get wasted. And I've done a lot of that. So anyway, I'm trying to think if there's anything else really useful that I could tell you. Looks like you're doing really great at making the loops. If you want me to show you how to make earring hoops like this, since you have the wire, it's so easy. You like bend this part around a pencil and then make this loop part with your pliers. I can show you that if you're curious, since you sounds like you have extra beads maybe. I can show you that in like 5 minutes. Yeah, and Jethro is staring at me. I think he wants something to eat, so I better go before he skins and eats me. But yeah, I hope that helps, and I am here to answer any questions because this has been a super fun hobby for me. Oh yeah, I was going to show you just on my necklace. Wow, there we go. Focus. What this looks like. This is really exaggerated because for some reason I used gigantic jump rings and clasp here. And that's what it looks like when you have a crimp bead cover on both ends with your little loop and your these jump rings are so huge. That is so not necessary. You know, I probably ran out of the little ones. Anyway, there you go. Finished piece. Hope this helps.